Viewers, and welcome back to for final maths class. Today we are going to look at the circumference of a circle, how to calculate for the circumference of a circle. Now we have circle like this, okay? We have two ways of finding the circumference of a circle, okay? You can use the diameter of the circle and the radius of the circle to find the circumference of the circle. So today or now we are going to look at both ways of finding what the circumference of a circle. Now when we are to use the diameter to find the circumference of a circle, we know that the area of the circle or the distance around the circle is the circumference of the circle. Okay, so if we were to be a figure like to be square or rectangle, we don't find the circumference of a rectangle, but rather we find what? The perimeter. And the circle too, we don't find the perimeter of a circle, but rather we find what? The circumference of a circle. Okay, so the distance around it is the circumference. And then the long line from one point to the other point of the circle, and also it should pass through the middle of the circle, okay? It should pass through the center of the circle. So that line which passes through the center of the circle to touch both sides of the circle is known as what? The diameter. It's known as the diameter. Okay, it's known as diameter. And then the line that moves from the center to one arc of the circle or to touch one part of the circle is known as what? The radius. So the radius of the circle, okay? So if the radius of the circle is more than one, we call it radii, okay? But if it is one, we call it what? Radius. Now there's formula for finding the circumference of the circle. So let me insert circumference to be what? C is equal to, when we are using the diameter to find the circumference of the circle, we use the formula pi d. Okay, that's what we use to find the circumference of a circle. Now when we are to use the radius, so this is the diameter, so when we are to use the radius too, how is it? Now with the radius too, all we need to do is, you know, the radius divides the diameter into two equal parts, right? So if for instance we are using this formula to derive the formula for finding the circumference of a circle using the radius, what we do is, you know, we have pi here, okay? D is what? Radius times 2. Okay, the radius times 2 will give us what? The d. All right, so d instead of d, we put what? The radius, or d is equal to, you know, 2 times the radius of a circle. Okay, so if you want to substitute this d and put the radius, or and put a variable which is relating to in terms of radius, what we do is to make what? Radius the subject here. So by making radius subject here, we have to divide both sides by 2 here. Okay, so the radius will be equal to what? D divided by 2. All right, so from here, instead of putting what? The radius, the diameter there, okay, we put what? The radius formula there, which is what? D over 2. So D over 2 stands for what? Stands for the radius, because when you divide this diameter into 2 from here to here, if you divide it into 2, you get what? The radius. So from here to here is the radius, okay? And then from here also to here is also what? The radius of the circle, okay? So now instead of D, we can put what? 2r over there. All right, so we're writing it will be what? 2 pi r. And in most cases they will tell you that pi is equal to either 22 over 7, or this 22 over 7, when you resolve it or when you write it in decimal point, it can be 3.142 in short, blah blah blah. It is long, but mostly they leave it what? In 3 decimal places. Okay, so now if you are using the diameter to find the circumference of a circle, this is the formula that you will be using. And also if you are using the radius to find the circumference of a circle, this is the formula that you will be using. Okay, so now let's have a very short question here. So now if we are to find the radius of a circle, sorry, if we are to find the circumference of a circle, of a circle with radius, let's start with the diameter. With diameter, say 14 meters. Okay, now we know that circumference using the diameter is equal to pi d. Okay, So now pi, let's take pi to be equal to 22 over 7. So 22 over 7 times d is what? 14 meters. Okay, so now 7 will go into 7 one time, 7 will go into 14 two times, so it left with 22 by 2. So now we have what? 22 by 2 will be giving us what? 44 meters. So if you are finding the diameter of a circle with defining the circumference of a circle with diameter 14 meters, you will be getting the circumference to be what? 44 meters. Okay, so let's do the same thing for radius. So if you have radius, okay, to be equal to say 7 centimeters, okay, if you have radius to be equal, so the same thing, we are finding the circumference of a circle with radius, okay, instead of diameter we put what? Radius of what? 7 centimeters. What would that be? We know the formula of finding the circumference of a circle using the radius is equal to what? 2 pi r, okay, where r is the radius of the circle. Now we know c will be equal to 2 times 22. We are using 22 over 7 as our pi, okay. So 22 over 7 times 7 centimeters here, okay. So this 7 will cancel that 7 and left with what? 22 and then what? 2. So the circumference of a circle with radius 7 centimeters will be giving us what? 44 centimeters. So don't forget that the circumference of a circle is also measured using what? The unit that will be given with the diameter, okay, with the distance, either diameter or radius. If it is meters, circumference will be what? In meters, okay. And if it is centimeters too, the circumference will be in centimeters. Don't forget about the unit. The unit is very, very important. So these two formulas are what we should take note of, okay. So when the circumference is given or is asked, when we are asked to find circumference and then the diameter is given, this is the formula that we'll be using, okay. And also if the radius is what is given, this is the formula that we'll be using, which is with the diameter we have pi d, and then with the radius we have 2 pi r. That is what we should take note of, okay. And always when a question is given to you, they will state that you should take the pi to be equal to 22 over 7 or 3.142 in decimals, okay. So when it's given in this way, it means you will have to leave your answer in decimals, okay. So that will be the end of the circumference of a circle. In my next video we will try to look at the area, how to calculate for the area of a circle, and then we'll be done with the circle and then other things relating to the circle. So this will be the end of today's section, and don't forget to have a nice day. And if you are new to my page, make sure you subscribe, share with your learning colleagues. Have a nice day. Bye bye.